And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say it
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson here to preview week 1 of FCS football action. We've got 3 games that we're going to talk about on today's show, that being North Dakota State versus Colorado on Thursday, South Dakota State taking on Oklahoma State, and then the only real premier FCS on FCS matchup, which is Villanova versus Youngstown State. Before we get to that though, Sean, can you just share with our listeners a quick word from our friends over at BetOnline if they want to go find some of these lines and place some bets on them?
BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup. You've heard the read before. It's week 1 of college football. You know you're going to do some betting. Spread the wealth. Go to BetOnline. Do it there. Think you know your stuff. Get in on their $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of their over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here.
Thank you, Sean. So, first game that we've got that has a ton of anticipation going into it is the North Dakota State Bison taking on the very famous, maybe some consider them infamous, Colorado Buffaloes, led by Deion Sanders. FCS football fans are familiar with Deion Sanders in his time and his success at Jackson State. He was extremely fun for us to cover on this show when he was an FCS football coach and HBCU football coach for all the great things that he did over there at Jackson State. But this game, I feel like there is a very wide spectrum of reactions to this. There's a lot of people that want North Dakota State to win blindly because they want to see Deion Sanders go down and suffer an embarrassing loss to an FCS opponent. And they think that this North Dakota State team is still the same one that was the national champion behemoth that we were used to seeing, the one that knocked off Iowa, the ones that had Easton Stick and Carson Wentz and all of those things. Still a very good team, but not exactly up to that standard. Colorado, the other side of the spectrum, is that they're going to blow the doors off them and that they're going to blow past them. I sit pretty on the middle. I think that Colorado wins this game pretty handedly, Sean, for the main advantages that they have just a receiver compared to North Dakota State's defensive backs. 2-touchdown game, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't think it's necessarily going to be close, but a blowout more than 14 points against a North Dakota State team that's going to bleed the clock if they put any points on the board and sustain any long drives is not going to put themselves in a position to get smoked.
I think that Colorado has the quarterback advantage. Shedeur Sanders, I am a fan of him, and there's no lying there. The tape doesn't lie. The skills don't lie. You can't hide that matchup difference between him and Cam Miller, even though a certain show on a certain network said that Cam Miller was, one of the best offensive players in the country. It doesn't feel like it was egregious enough to really name drop and get after them, but I'll let Stone Labanowitz go out handle that. Yeah, he had a big day on Twitter.
Yeah.
But look, for the North Dakota State corner, they take advantage of teams that are distracted. They take advantage of teams that aren't fully focused on football. And this Colorado offseason, look, it's been a little less noise than last year, but they're still not without noise or distraction. Deion beefing with the local media. You have the crazy-ass clip that was edited in camp and made Colorado a bit of a online joke for a couple days. These are distractions. You don't see this happening with a lot of other programs, but Colorado has put a target on their back with all the big talk and all the noise, and North Dakota State is one of these teams where if that's happening in FCS, they take advantage of it. They take advantage of mental weakness. They take advantage of mental mistakes and mental errors. So Colorado has to show up and be buttoned up. A buttoned-up offense, defense, no MAs, no craziness, no arguing, just playing football, and then Colorado probably does get a good solid win over North Dakota State. They reloaded in the trenches, but North Dakota State is one of these programs where you can never overlook, and they've developed a reputation nationally where if you're playing them and you're a P5, P4 conference, you have to be ready. There's no more getting snuck up on by North Dakota State.
Well, a big reason why I don't really have a lot of doubt in Colorado in this circumstance is because Deion Sanders has been pretty clear in his focus on this game. And I think that an indicator of that was at Big 12 Media Days when he was talking about how he was upset with the athletic director for scheduling this game. And he understands the level of how much of a trap that this game could be if they overlook their opponent. I think that they're taking them very seriously. And I think that some might scoff at the notion of it being just generally being an opportunity to make a statement against an FCS team. But this really is a statement game for Colorado because they need to prove that they're taking every single week seriously and that they're not going to play into what you're talking about, the distractions that everyone else is trying to play up. To kind of stay focused on like the FCS angle of this, a lot of it will have to come down to, can North Dakota State turn Colorado over? Shedeur Sanders was, I think, one of the least turnover-prone quarterbacks in college football last year, barely any interceptions, despite how often he was sacked. I think for them, because of their secondary not being able to match up with what was one of the most, or is one of the more underrated receiver rooms for Colorado, they need to send a lot of pressure. They need to load the box. They need to be really aggressive. It also, there's a chance that Cole Wisniewski is not going to be available for this game, which keeps getting pushed along further to the point where he might not, almost seems unlikely for him to play in this matchup. For them to not have your best defensive back, your best safety, I really think that it needs to be one up front. And then on the other side of this, I think that offensively, Cam Miller's got to play the rare instances where he's completely unblemished. There are a lot of times I feel like in his career where we've watched him come into big matchups and he's had a turnover or two in situations where he can't do that. I don't know who Colorado's defense necessarily has because it's so completely reworked that will completely take advantage of him. Their defensive line is supposed to be a lot better, but he cannot be sloppy in games like we've seen him do earlier on in his career.
Miller is a rhythm guy at quarterback, and at times in his career, it's taken a couple games or 6 to 8 games for him to find his rhythm, and then he's good by the playoffs. It has to be one of these rare Cam Miller starting the season with a crazy bonkers game for them to be really competitive and matching what Colorado's doing on offense. The general take of what North Dakota State would do on offense this game is run the rock. That is what they've been premier for the last couple seasons. Get the healthy mix of running backs going, keep everybody fresh, punish the outside, punish the inside, wait for the big break, and then in the third quarter it opens up. That's typically against FCS opponents, though. Colorado, They have P4 dudes on defense. So if that means that the wear down is slower and it takes until the fourth quarter for the big break on the defense with the grinding and churning out of the running game, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it takes a little bit longer, but that has to be the focus. Give Cam Miller a little opportunity to make crucial mistakes, but let him still command the offense and try to get something going. I don't think you can go into this game and just say we're going to run it 60 times and we're going to pass it 15. There has to be balance, or else Colorado will take advantage of it because they have a guy that can shut down half the field on the outside in Travis Hunter. So you can't just go, North Dakota State's going to run the rock and they're going to have their big meaties up front punish Colorado. It has to be a balanced attack, in my opinion.
The other game that I think has the more upset potential that isn't getting talked about enough, and we're not saying this is lip service to South Dakota State fans that follow this channel, I really think that South Dakota State has more of a legitimate chance to upset Oklahoma State than people realize. Now, I keep seeing South Dakota State folks sharing clips of these buffoons that cover Oklahoma State that did no research. There were some of these hosts keep repeating this statement that they think that South Dakota State is undersized and not physical enough to stop Oklahoma State's run game. Mm-hmm. And I would be remiss to look back and discover, I believe South Dakota State's put out more offensive linemen into the NFL than Oklahoma State has over the past couple of years. Now, I know that they're reloading and replacing Mason McCormick and Garrett Greenfield, but come on, guys, it takes 2 seconds to Google. I'm always dumbfounded by some of these larger fan bases larger fan base beat reporters' inability to open their eyes outside of the scope of their own team. They're always extremely blinded. If you're going to do research and talk about an opponent, holy shit, please look them up. But for this reason, I think that there could be an upset afoot. The way that they played against Iowa 2 years ago makes me feel really good about what they could put out. That Iowa team was really freaking good, especially defensively. Mark Gronowski has had plenty of time to improve to the point where he was named the best player in the country. And I know that there's turnover at offensive line, but they're a team that has been next man up. They very rarely have roster turnover, and they've been developing guys. I'm going to keep saying it, if there is an FCS upset this week that everybody turns their heads and goes, holy crap, what just happened? It's going to be this, because South Dakota State knows how to drag you down. They know how to force you to make mistakes, and Alan Bowman has been a mistake-prone quarterback, especially last season with some of the rough games that he had.
I love that you brought up the Iowa game because South Dakota State was Iowa when they were playing Iowa, and now they have a quarterback that's better than any quarterback that's been on Iowa in the last 3 years. So good.
And also to be known, I think. So Dane Brugler came on with Ryan and I yesterday, and he said he's putting out an article. I think it might already be out, that talked about how there were a lot of teams that at the P4 level that offered a ton of money to Gronowski to come play. So he is a legit player, possible NFL prospect, but was legit enough that P4 programs were trying to offer him a ton of money to come play for them. So he is the better quarterback in this matchup. He is better than Alan Bowman. Oklahoma State fans who probably aren't going to watch this, you dopes don't know what you're getting yourself into.
I would say that they have to be ready to play Iowa. That's what you have to be ready to do. Iowa with a quarterback. That means you can't take them lightly. You have to be ready. I wouldn't even run the ball up the middle if I was Oklahoma State. I don't want that maniac Bach touching my running backs, because once he starts getting a scent for the ball, he'll be on it all game, like a bloodhound. South Dakota State is one of these teams that has now gotten they're getting the North Dakota State treatment of years past, and they've put out teams that have been better than North Dakota State teams in years past. This team, new team, than years before. They're not as loaded, in my opinion, but you have to respect what they've been able to do, how well coached they are. That was one of the things that I noted when we watched them live last season, was even in a crazy game against UNI, they never faltered, lost confidence, or got down. When there was crazy turnovers, weird spots, whatever it is, they stayed as composed as a team as I've ever seen during some of the craziest plays in a college football game, and they just stayed the course, rode it out, and won by 30 points. That's what they do against FCS teams. Oklahoma State, I don't think they're walking in here with any fear. I don't think they're intimidated by Oklahoma State. I think they know how to win. They've been there before, and they're ready to make a statement against a P4 team.
Now, it's obviously needs to be noted that Oklahoma State has potential Heisman Trophy winner with Ollie Gordon. That's easier said than done, trying to stop a guy like that. I really think that this is, though, it's a team that South Dakota State fits the description that they could upset, because if they play the run fits correctly, they are gap sound, they are technically sound on defense. They can come downhill and they can stop him close to the line of scrimmage and try to bottle him up, put everything on Alan Bowman's shoulders. If Bowman plays better than we've seen him play when everything is placed on his shoulders, then they're able to win this game. It all will come down to, though, the running success of Ollie Gordon. And it sounds like that they don't want to have to use him too much in this game, because they would like to rely on some of their other backs and not try to overwork Ollie Gordon. But I think that they might need to get him some more touches than they expect. Generally, though, I think that it's probably more likely than not that Oklahoma State wins the game. But if there is potential for an upset, this one, again, I will keep saying this over and over again, feels the most potentially likely.
Good luck. Ollie, I don't think we're going to need you too much this game. And then halftime, Ollie, suit him up. Get ready. We need you this half. And we need you at 100% this half. That's so possible to happen in you play your starters. You're going to need to, because South Dakota State is going to wear down a backup. They're going to wear down the starters. Get ready. You cannot hold any punches or anything. It'll be How amazing would it be to see Oklahoma State have to pull out some gimmicky trick play to try to convert like a long 3rd and 17?
That would be concerning.
That's something I could see happening in this game. Close game. Oklahoma State has to pull out not Bush League, but not the standard playbook to try to get some sneaky big plays.
We need to remind ourselves, for anyone who we're bringing up the Iowa game as an example of how hard fought South Dakota State was. We need to remind ourselves, too, that Oklahoma State lost to South Alabama last year, so they are not free of having early season mess-ups. And I will give Colorado fans a lot of credit here. They are taking this North Dakota State matchup very seriously. From the video that I put out on Rufino and Joe when we did that preview, a lot of them commended what Blake and I were talking about, where this is not an easy out. A lot of them were saying, like, yeah, we totally agree. We know that we need to be focused. They're taking it really seriously. It does not seem like Oklahoma State fans generally are taking this matchup as seriously. I'd be curious to know what the tone is heading into this game in the locker room.
Well, I think that Colorado fans got a good introduction to the FCS when Shooter and Dion and the Jackson State guys came in, and they showed love. They said, it's not that different when they're talking about FCS, Jackson State versus the FBS guys that they're playing, the FBS guys that they're seeing. They said, yeah, it's not different. It's not different talent. It's just different situation, different schools. So they got the Colorado fans inundated that FCS football is not that far off when it comes to the talent gap than you would expect. Oklahoma State fans, I don't think they've been that inundated yet. And maybe this is one of the games where they do get learned up.
Last game that we're going to talk about before we wrap up here. Again, not very many FCS on FCS matchups, so conversation today is not as deep as we typically go because there's just not really any games that are impacting the national landscape. Shout out to, was it Heath?
Yeah, Heath had some tweets yesterday.
Well, he tagged us and he brought up a good point. It's like, how much should we factor in these FBS games? If you beat an FBS opponent, yes, you should count it. If you lose to an FBS opponent, it doesn't mean anything. There's 100% truth to that. I think that there is a lot the case here for what we're talking about this week. We're not going to talk about Furman playing Ole Miss. It's just kind of like a zero-sum game. It's an exhibition. That's exactly what it is. But the one matchup that we do have on Thursday, Youngstown State at Villanova, rematch from the playoffs last year. I'm intrigued by this, but I lean heavily on Villanova purely from, if you dig in on Youngstown State's offseason, they were completely not picked apart, but there was a ton of roster turnover of guys coming out and then coming in through the transfer portal. And we know that at any level, not that it's unsustainable, but week one, going up against a highly ranked FCS opponent that's the best in their conference, not exactly the type of roster that you want to have for this matchup, especially because they have Connor Watkins coming back, who we've hyped up a ton, and they've got 3 starters on their offensive line and an all-conference offensive lineman that they brought in from Davidson. Connor Watkins is the real guy that I'm paying attention to here. And then on defense, Isaiah Waxter, who is potentially maybe draftable, if not high priority UDFA at corner. Just a quick other thought, Sean. I couldn't find who's supposed to start at quarterback for Youngstown State.
I think it's Bo Brungard.
Did you find an article that said that?
It just came out today.
Okay, so
I believe so.
Okay. Like right when you just sat down, so it must have been like 20 minutes after I looked it up and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, Jared Miller released an article 9 a.m. Eastern.
Okay, so it was
today that we're recording, and I believe it's Bo Brungard that's supposed to be stepping in for Davidson at Youngstown. I wasn't that high on Youngstown last season. I know a lot of people were. I caught a little bit of flack from the Youngstown faithful. I didn't have it in my top 25 this season. The loss of Davidson hurts. And they're going to be walking that Tarleton State bubble for me all year. Really good running backs. That'll be the most talented player on the offense, but overall not very thorough and dangerous on O. So that means you're going to have to do a lot of technical things right on defense, and you're going to be able to have to rely heavy on being able to run the rock. Villanova is not one of these teams that lets you get away easy with having a one-sided offensive attack. So I need to see, I guess, Brungard come out here and start dotting up, or at least managing the offense and moving them down the field, and not having to rely just on the run game in this matchup.
Yeah, Tyshawn King is their leading rusher coming back, who rushed for 1,000 yards last year. Their offensive line is extremely experienced with 4 starters coming back. They're going to have I never want to throw out the word easy time. They're going to rely on their run game with a new quarterback in place. When I was reading the preview on them, there were 5 guys that were brought up. So it doesn't exactly sound like there was a quick, immediate decision, that was made quickly by Youngstown State. This came a day before the game. I'm sure that they were trying to drag it out as long as possible, as to have some sort of uncertainty on Villanova's side of things. But it's always a little iffy for me. 1, completely new quarterback, and then 2, roster turnover that necessarily isn't just your starters, but having backups and depth that is completely new faces to the locker room. If you have to call on those guys, it takes some time to develop some chemistry for those players. But I still really like this Villanova team, and I think that they're going to win this game, especially because they're hosting a team that's traveling all the way from Ohio.
Yeah, their 2 leading tacklers are back for Villanova, Shane Hartzell and Brendan Bell, pardon me. That's big. Having the 2 big signal callers on the defense and guys that are always in the mix coming back is huge, especially if the game that I'm predicting between these 2 is going to be Tyshawn King versus the linebackers. Having 2 guys that combined for 91 plus 89. Quick maths, 170 tackles between them. Yeah, all right, maybe 180. Quick maths is struggling right now. Regardless, I think that Villanova holds the advantage on defense in this game, and I think they hold the advantage on offense as well. Just ready to see what Connor Watkins can do in the first game. See what the offense looks like. See what the poise is like. No jitters, no weird stuff. Just be cool, calm, collected quarterback. Go through the game. You'll probably end up winning it.
We're excited for FCS action in week 1. Hopefully I've got a little more energy next time and I'm not still sick. But we're going to be recapping week 1 action sometime this weekend. We're still trying to figure out our schedule for when we're going to tape these shows. But stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment below and then leave us a 5-star review if you're tuning in on audio. @HackCityPod on Twitter. I'll talk to you folks later.